23 funeral homes across the Southwest, all licensed, all conducting real services for grieving families. Every ceremony respectful, every burial handled with dignity. Industry reputation intact. But cargo weight on outbound hearses averaged 340 pounds heavier than industry standard. Nobody weighs a casket leaving a funeral home. Nobody stops a funeral procession on the highway. That was the strategy. And it worked for 4 years, before someone noticed the math didn't add up. The discovery began with a traffic accident. October 2023. Interstate 10 near Las Cruces, New Mexico. A hearse from Eternal Rest Funeral Services was rear-ended by a semi-truck. The impact was severe. The hearse spun out. The rear door failed. The casket slid partially out. State police secured the scene, checked for injured. The hearse driver, Miguel Santos, was shaken but unharmed. The truck driver was fine. Standard accident protocol. Police would file reports. Insurance would handle damages. Routine. But Officer David Martinez noticed something. The casket hadn't opened from the impact. That was good. But the weight seemed wrong. He'd worked accident scenes involving funeral vehicles before. Caskets moved in crashes. They shifted. But this one had slid with unusual momentum. Heavy momentum. Martinez asked Santos about the deceased. Santos provided documentation, death certificate, transport permit, destination, cemetery 40 miles east. Everything legitimate. But Martinez's instinct persisted. He requested permission to inspect the casket for damage. Santos hesitated, then agreed. They opened it carefully. The body was present. Elderly woman, properly prepared. But the casket interior felt wrong. Martinez tapped the casket bottom, hollow sound. He checked the exterior depth versus interior depth, 6 inches missing. False bottom. Martinez called for backup. DEA agents arrived within an hour. They removed the body respectfully, then dismantled the casket bottom panel. Underneath, 47 kilograms of fentanyl, packaged in vacuum-sealed bags, fitted precisely into the hidden compartment. The casket's exterior dimensions appeared normal. The interior was designed to conceal cargo while still accommodating a body. Santos was arrested, interrogated. He broke quickly, told agents everything. The funeral home had been purchased 3 years earlier. New ownership. He was hired as a driver. Good pay, benefits. The work seemed legitimate, until they asked him to make special transports. Told him the caskets contained sensitive materials for certain families. Don't ask questions. Drive carefully. Deliver to specific cemeteries. Extra pay for discretion. He suspected drugs, but he needed the job. Had a family. The money was significant, $3,000 per transport. He'd made 67 runs over 2 years, never opened the caskets, never confirmed what was inside. Willful ignorance, until the accident exposed everything. DEA investigation expanded. Eternal Rest Funeral Services was one of 23 funeral homes purchased by the same holding company between 2019 and 2021. The company, Serenity Memorial Group, appeared legitimate, licensed in 6 states, registered with funeral industry associations. The homes continued operating normally. Same staff, same services. Families had no idea the businesses were cartel fronts. Financial analysis revealed the pattern. Serenity Memorial paid above-market prices for the funeral homes, overpaying by 40 to 60%. That made no business sense unless the acquisition had purposes beyond funeral services. The homes were profitable, but not profitable enough to justify the purchase prices. The real value was infrastructure. Funeral homes have unique access. They transport bodies across state lines regularly. They have crematoriums. They handle human remains without excessive oversight. They operate vehicles that receive deference on roads. Nobody stops a hearse. Police officers wave funeral processions through intersections. The vehicles move with special privilege. That privilege could be weaponized. If you believe desecrating funeral services for drug trafficking deserves life sentences, type justice below. FBI assembled a task force. The scope was clear. 23 funeral homes, 6 states, unknown number of transports over 4 years. The operation needed mapping. Every transport, every route, every driver involved. And most critically, identifying which funerals had been used for smuggling versus which were legitimate services. Surveillance began. Teams monitored all 23 locations, watching transports, documenting patterns. The challenge was separating normal funeral operations from criminal activity. Every home conducted genuine services. The smuggling was mixed in. Specific transports, specific drivers. The operation was compartmentalized. Most staff didn't know. Only select employees were involved. Data analysis provided breakthrough. Transport logs showed patterns. Certain drivers made more interstate transports than others. Certain routes appeared frequently. Certain cemeteries received multiple deliveries from different funeral homes. The destinations were remote, rural cemeteries, small plots in border regions, places where oversight was minimal. Agents visited those cemeteries, checked burial records, found discrepancies. Some listed burials had no corresponding death certificates. Some plots showed recent digging but no recorded interments. Some graves contained caskets that had never been sealed. The cemeteries weren't just destinations, they were transshipment points. The system worked like this. Funeral home in California prepared a legitimate body with false bottom casket containing drugs. Driver transported to remote cemetery in Arizona. At night, cartel operatives met the hearse, removed the casket, extracted the drugs, resealed the casket. The body was then properly buried. The funeral appeared normal. Family never knew their loved one's final journey had been corrupted. Other times, there was no body. The casket contained only drugs, fake death certificates, fake permits, but all paperwork appeared legitimate. Who questions funeral documents? Who inspects caskets? The system exploited the sanctity of death. Society's reluctance to interfere with burial rites created operational security. The scale was staggering. Forensic accounting estimated between 800 and 1,000 transports over 4 years. Not every transport carried drugs. Maybe 1 in 5. But that still meant approximately 200 successful smuggling runs. Average load, 40 to 50 kilograms per casket. Total, approximately 10 tons over 4 years. FBI needed evidence beyond surveillance. They needed to catch active transports, identify current routes, intercept shipments, prove the system was operational, not historical. Agents embedded tracking devices in funeral home vehicles. Legal warrants authorized GPS monitoring. The tracking data would show where hearses went, whether routes matched declared destinations, whether vehicles stopped at unexpected locations. The data confirmed it. Multiple hearses showed deviations. Declared destination, Cemetery A. Actual route, stopped at warehouse B, then proceeded to Cemetery A. Stop duration, 12 to 20 minutes, enough time to unload cargo. The pattern repeated across different vehicles and locations. Agents needed visual confirmation. They set up surveillance at one of the warehouses. Waited. 3 days later, a hearse from Desert Rose Funeral Home arrived. 11:47 p.m. No reason for a funeral at midnight. Driver exited. Opened rear door. 2 individuals emerged from the warehouse. They removed the casket, carried it inside. 14 minutes later, they returned the casket, loaded it back. The hearse departed. Agents followed. The hearse drove to a cemetery 20 miles away. Rural location, no lights. The hearse stopped. The driver waited. Another vehicle arrived. They removed the casket again, opened it, extracted packages, loaded them into the second vehicle. That vehicle departed. The hearse left with the empty casket. The next day, burial records showed a funeral at that cemetery. The family had no knowledge. Their relative's body had been used as cover for drug transport. The casket they selected had been modified. The service they paid for had been exploited. The business they trusted had betrayed them. FBI expanded surveillance to all 23 locations. Patterns became clear. 6 homes were heavily involved. Multiple transports weekly. 12 homes showed moderate activity. Occasional transports. 5 homes appeared clean, purchased but not actively used for smuggling. The operation was distributed. Not every location was compromised equally. That made prosecution complex. Coordinating the takedown required precision. 23 funeral homes across 6 states. Simultaneous raids necessary. Can't warn the others, But timing was sensitive. Couldn't raid during active funerals. Couldn't disrupt legitimate services. The homes were still serving real families, real grief, real ceremonies. FBI chose early morning, 5:00 a.m., before operations began, after any late transports concluded. May 15, 2024, Wednesday, agents positioned overnight, warrant teams ready. At 5:00 a.m., all 23 locations were breached simultaneously. Federal agents, search warrants, every building secured. Staff were detained. Managers arrested. Owners taken into custody. The homes were frozen. No services could proceed. Families with scheduled funerals were contacted. Arrangements transferred to other providers. The disruption was unavoidable. Explaining why was harder. How do you tell grieving families that the funeral home handling their loved one was a cartel front? Searches revealed the infrastructure: modified caskets stored in back rooms, false bottoms, compartments sized for drug packages, tools for installation and removal. Some caskets were works of craftsmanship, beautiful exteriors, hidden interiors. The modifications were professional. Quality work, done by skilled carpenters, likely paid well for their discretion. Financial records were seized, payment ledgers, driver bonuses, special transport fees. The accounting was careful, coded entries, but forensic analysis decoded them. The pattern was clear. The funeral homes generated legitimate revenue from services, but significant unreported income came from cartel payments. The businesses were dual purpose, legal and illegal, operating simultaneously. Drivers were arrested. 67 total, not all new. Some genuinely believed they were transporting sensitive materials or valuable items for wealthy families. The cartel compartmentalized information, need-to-know basis. But many suspected, chose not to question. The money was good, the work wasn't dangerous, just drive. Don't look inside, don't talk. Federal prosecutors filed charges. The funeral home operators faced conspiracy to distribute, money laundering, operating a continuing criminal enterprise. Using funeral services for trafficking created additional charges: desecration, abuse of professional license, violations of industry regulations. Sentences ranged from 25 years to life depending on involvement level. Drivers who cooperated received reduced sentences, 15 to 20 years. Those who didn't faced 30 to 40. Miguel Santos, the driver from the accident, received 15 years for cooperation. He provided testimony, named coordinators, detailed operations. His assistance was substantial, but his crime was severe. 67 transports, approximately 3,000 kilograms delivered. The court balanced cooperation against consequence. The families were devastated. Those whose funerals had been exploited learned the truth. Their loved ones' final journeys had been corrupted. Their trust had been violated. The Funeral Industry Association issued statements, condemned the operations, promised reforms, enhanced oversight, mandatory audits, background checks for ownership changes. But damage was done. Trust in funeral homes was shaken. How do families know their chosen provider is legitimate? How do you verify sacred services aren't being exploited? The questions had no easy answers. Regulation could help, but criminals adapt. New methods, new disguises. The cycle continues. Asset forfeiture totaled $400 million. The 23 funeral homes, properties, vehicles, equipment, bank accounts, everything connected to Serenity Memorial Group. The businesses were shut down permanently. Properties sold. Some were purchased by legitimate funeral service providers. Others were demolished. The contaminated locations couldn't be rehabilitated. The association with trafficking was permanent. The human cost was measured differently. The 10 tons smuggled over 4 years represented product that reached streets. Fentanyl kills in milligrams. 10 tons is 10 million grams. Each gram can produce hundreds of fatal doses. The mathematics of harm were astronomical. Tens of thousands potentially died from product that moved through those funeral homes. The bodies and caskets represented deaths already occurred. The drugs underneath represented deaths yet to come. Investigation revealed broader implications. Other cartel operations using sacred services, ambulance companies, medical transport, vehicles that society respects and grants passage. The strategy was consistent. Identify trusted infrastructure, infiltrate it, exploit the trust. The formula worked because culture creates blind spots. What we hold sacred becomes invisible to suspicion. Federal analysis examined funeral industry acquisitions nationwide, looking for similar patterns: overpayment for properties, holding companies with unclear ownership, interstate transport patterns, unusual cemetery relationships. The review identified 47 additional funeral homes worth investigating, some legitimate, some potentially compromised. The inquiries continue. This case proved that criminals target what culture protects. Funeral services are sacred. Death deserves dignity. Those values created security vulnerabilities. Cartels exploited them, used respect for the dead as camouflage for trafficking. The strategy was morally repugnant, but operationally brilliant. Subscribe for investigations exposing hidden corruption in trusted services. Share if you believe funeral industry oversight must be enhanced. Like if this betrayal demands accountability. This scheme worked too well, which means similar operations exist. How many other funeral homes have been quietly purchased? How many hearses carry more than bodies? How many families have unknowingly participated in trafficking through the funerals they trusted? Stay vigilant.